our guests already. I'm very excited that we have Joe and Daniella Pantoliano here with us. There he is. There's Joe. How you doing, Joey?
You hear me okay?
I hear you now. Sure do. Looking good, my friend.
Thank you.
Now, I've been reading about this podcast. You and your daughter, Daniella, have a podcast. You just started it maybe a week or two ago. And it's such an interesting concept. I knew when I read No Kidding, Me Too, I knew exactly what this was about. Because when you're dealing with mental illness, whether it's, and there's a stigma, I'm sure you'll get into it when I allow you to talk because I am a babbling idiot. When you talk about mental illness, people always think of this, you're ripping your clothes off, you're running down the street. But a lot of people deal with mental illness on a daily basis. No one knows, but it's an internal struggle that people have to deal with. And when you say, no kidding, me too, there is a certain comfort when somebody tells you that they're going through something that's exactly what you're going through. And you think, oh my God, I'm not the only person that's going through this, and there's a comfort to it, and it could be that first step to getting that help that so many people need.
Yes, that's exactly right. I started an organization, a nonprofit advocacy for this very thing 10 years ago when I was finally diagnosed with clinical depression. After I'd done a movie about the onset of how mental illness diagnosis affects the entire family. It was a movie called Canvas. I did it with Marcia Gay Harden and Joe Greco. It was autobiographical about him growing up as a young boy with a mother with schizophrenia. And Marcia Gay, when I was working with her, it was uncanny, but she reminded me of my mother. And, I always looked at my mom with disappointment that she didn't want to get better, so that she was so happy to dwell in her familiar misery, rather to explore the unfamiliar happiness. And once I was told that what I had was a disease and that we could delve in and see what it was. What it basically was a lot of this unresolved adolescent childhood traumas that I continued to bury, and that it wasn't my fault, and that it wasn't a character defect. In a lot of respects, I was liberated. Like I've got an illness, like I have cancer or a bad gallbladder. But then when I was discriminated because of that diagnosis, as a result of once I was able to go back to work, the insurance company on a movie I was about to start wouldn't insure me because I was taking 10 milligrams of an antidepressant along with 10 milligrams of a statin because I had a history of heart disease, just like I had a history of mental disease. Mm-hmm. And I asked the doc, well, what about, why are they not wanting to insure my brain, but they will insure my heart? If I have a heart attack, it's okay. But right. if I have a breakdown, then it's on me. They wanted me to come up with the money if I caused any slowdown or stoppage.
Yeah.
And people would say to me in the airports, what are you making about? I'm doing a movie about mental illness. No kidding, me too. My mother, no kidding, me too. My brother, no kidding, me too. My sister. So it was also everybody is dealing with this, whether they are dealing with a temporary diseasiness that is stuck in their head and they can't get it out of there even when they want to. And it's gets to the point where you're unable to function as if you were in your daily life.
Yeah.
And you're afraid to turn to somebody for help because you feel like you're weak.
The stigma behind it, the weakness. If you have a physical problem, eventually it'll probably drive you to a doctor or a hospital. You will say, I can't deal with this anymore. But you brought up a great point with mental illness. People will sit and take that misery because I think the idea of the unknown, change, going forward and trying to better yourself mentally is a scary thought. And the truth of the matter is, once you break that and actually pursue it, it's not as scary as the life you've been living in with mental illness. I went through anxiety in my teen years and early adulthood, and it was debilitating at some points. No one really knew about it because I didn't talk about it. But there was an anxiety in me that came out of nowhere. I didn't know what it was. This is back in, the 80s when I didn't know what it was. I wasn't going to talk to my friends or family about it. I just dealt with it on a daily basis. You self-medicate with alcohol. You do other things. But when I finally talked to somebody that had been through the same thing and I knew it wasn't just this weird anomaly with me, it made me feel better and made me feel like there were some resources out there that I could go to. Now, whether they worked or not, I don't know. I reached a point in my probably early 30s where I just said, I've had it. Do what you will with me. If I'm going to go nuts and run down the street, do it. I don't care anymore. And it gave me a certain power over it that I was then able to have more control over it over time. It's such a weird way how we handle things like that, whether it's through actual medicine or rationalizing things in your head. But the first thing and the most important thing is knowing that other people go through this. Hi, Daniella. We got volume on Daniella? I saw hi.
Oh, hello.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry,
How you doing?
I muted myself because there was a car honking outside.
See that? Damn kids. Yeah, it's just such a strange way that we deal with physical problems and mental problems in this country, at least, maybe in the world, certain parts of the world, I'm sure. But it's great that you guys have a show that's actually talking about it.
And we're talking with people like we did when I made the documentary 10 years ago, talking with people that you would think on paper don't have any problems. They got everything they want. It's like their wildest dreams came true. So what are they complaining about? It's compelling and it's interesting and it's funny at times. And right now we have Bonnie Hunt up, and we've got a bunch of great interviews coming up. And
yeah, Chaz Palminteri also.
Who?
Chaz Palminteri, I saw. Yeah, there.
We started with like really all of my lifelong best friends. We're working down the pipe. We got Marcia Gay Harden coming, Waylon Payne, a country western singer. We're doing George Wallace next week.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, do you find that a lot of people or that all people somehow have some kind of especially in the creative community, you've talked about that, people, actors, musicians and whatnot, that there is something that spurs that spark of creativity that's buried in there that could be considered mental illness.
Well, it's, mental illness has the stench of permanency. And what it really is an overwhelming emotional empathy. We feel more. And we're sensitive to our surroundings, and those elements affect us, and we withdraw from them, or we try to escape them, and hit the eject button. Whether it's what I call my 7 deadly symptoms, whether it was food or success, or women or drugs or alcohol. I didn't want to feel that way. And so a lot of times people identify themselves once they begin the journey of recovery, they identify themselves by their symptoms. I'm an alcoholic, I'm a drug addict, I have an eating disorder, I'm a sex addict. And what it really is those were the elements that we chose to right side ourselves. We went to that because we thought it was a lifeline, and then all of a sudden you've got an additional issue to have to deal with.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? People in the entertainment business have to deal with the ups and downs of the business itself, the highs of unbelievable success, and then these lows of just a dry spell. And I don't know how many people are really cut out for that. There's no consistency, no security in this business, and you really have to be prepared for those low moments, but also the high moments. You could take advantage of success and have it damage you pretty badly. But it seems to be a business that you'd have to be very mentally stable in, yet there's a lot of people that aren't in that business.
Well, in my own experience, as I started getting the things that I dreamt about, I was surprised that that feeling in the center in my solar plexus didn't go away. I always thought that if I get this, it'll go away.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
To get rid of this feeling that's been living inside my chest my whole life. That's why Danny and I, we don't call it a brain disease anymore. It's really a kind of an emotional disease or a spiritual disease. And the idea that creativity is really a lifeline to the confusion and actually the childhood traumas that caused this, that built the character that we are. And then we create a character, which is like our armor. To go out into the world, we put on our armor and we strut out into the world thinking that we're going to be protected, but it's really to expose that vulnerability and to share with another person. How you doing? Oh, everything's great. Well, everything's not great. And the American psyche is the program is to put on that happy face and be positive and power of positive living. It's all horseshit.
Yeah. It's amazing, again, in the entertainment business, and I'm around stand-up comics a lot, and they're notorious for not getting help because they have this impression that if they're happy, they're not going to be funny. They need to be unhappy. I think actors in some way feel like if I'm not happy, if I don't have this inner turmoil, I'm not going to be able to project a character as well as I could when I'm miserable. So there's an apprehension to fixing a problem. It's almost like a singer not getting a nose job. I don't want my voice to change. Do you see that a lot in the industry you're in?
I don't, because it's an unconscious element. We only are able to talk about that when we finally discover that we're broken, that there's something wrong. If you're lucky enough to get the success that you desire, then you realize this is not making it, this is not going away. With me, it was like I was in a lot of ways sitting on top of the world. Everything that I ever wanted was coming true. And I had this overwhelming, constant feeling that I wanted to kill myself.
Wow.
And I was like, why? What's wrong with you? Why do you, I was just dumbfounded by it. And then I discovered pain pills and I was sucking them down, 12, 15 a day.
Wow.
With a bounce in my step, it was like, oh, this is like, it anesthetized that dominant feeling of sadness.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you sad? And Daniella was at that time, what were you, 9 or 10 years old when this started?
I think the pain pill, I think I was in high school when the pain pills started. Or, maybe not. That's when you started getting better, I guess, was in high school.
Did you notice a point, even though obviously you were young at the time, did you notice like, wow, Dad's kind of down or?
Yes, actually, I was always the one that I could handle him, so if he was in a mood, Danny, you have to go talk to Dad. Danny, we need Dad to do this. You have to be the one to go ask him. And there were times where I was afraid to ask him things. I thought about this the other day. I remember being on set with him, and we drove to set, and his car just turned off, and so the like exhaust pipe was hot, and I was wearing shorts and I burned myself on it, and I didn't tell him because I thought he'd get mad for some reason. You know, there's no, like, and then when I did tell him, he was like, "What? Why didn't you tell me?" Blah blah blah. But I had been traumatized for little things. You know, if I didn't put my shoes away or this, and he would get angry and upset. And you've seen him in the movies. He can be very loud when he's upset and angry.
Oh my God, yes.
So I did, you know, even when I was young, pick up on, you know, when he was in certain moods and when I would approach him about certain things.
Depression will manifest itself as anger a lot of times. I guess out of sheer frustration, and kids are so susceptible to that, being in that position. And it's amazing how young of a child can pick up on these things and learn how to handle it and deal with it. But do you think that almost kind of transfers some of that onto the child? Did you, Daniella, have any issues because of that?
Yeah, I always my line is always I was voted most outgoing my senior year, and then 3 months later I was diagnosed with depression.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Because I guess I'm discovering through therapy now, like, I took care of my parents emotionally in some ways. And so I felt like I didn't drink in high school. I didn't go to like party. I didn't ever want to be in trouble. So I was the good girl because I couldn't be the problem because my parents were having problems.
Wow.
So I had to be perfect. I would cry in the bathroom. I'd lock the door and cry. I couldn't let anyone see me cry. I've gotten better at that.
That's a huge weight on a child to think that if I step out of line or get myself in trouble, you know, the family could literally crumble. I'm holding this together. It's such a job of the parent to do that. And yeah, I could see how that would manifest itself into something as you get older that is not a good thing. It's great though that you know that, you identify it, you and your dad know it and identify it, and you're working on it. Joe, how would you say you are now? Do you consider yourself cured of depression? Are you still working on it?
I'm very depressed today.
Well, being on this show, I know many of my guests go into a deep depression.
You know, it's the funniest thing. It's like, oh, it's not about being on the show. I mean, this is an opportunity for people to find us, and you know, and this podcast is a resource, a wellness resource. But you know, I have those moments where it just gets so heavy, and I think a lot of it is what's happening around us in the world. You know, I have Asian American grandchildren too. We have 4 grandboys, but 2 of them are half Korean, Caucasian, and you know, because of all of this Asian bashing and bullying that's occurring, and the shooting in Atlanta, of course, I just been really stuck with those images in my head. And I woke up today at 2:30 in the morning, and I couldn't sleep. You know, so I'm worried. That's my MO, is I tend to, even when I don't want to, you know, even when I try to shake it off. It just sticks with me.
Yeah.
Now, see, you know, 10 years ago, you would have said, "So how you doing today?" Yeah, and I would say, "No, yep, got it. It's all good. I'm cured." And now I just talk about it, and I find people that want to talk about it too.
Are you still? Do you still get those moments where, you know, you think you don't want to be around anymore? Do you?
Sure.
Really? Wow. And
you want to escape the pain.
Mm-hmm. But now it is like the worrying about external things. I can get that. That's visceral. That's something that is happening. I know a lot of people that have problems with this kind of spontaneous gloom and dread that doesn't have a reason. We're living in unbelievably trying times right now, and it is affecting a lot of people. How do you separate the things you're supposed to worry about and be depressed about?
Opioid addiction's up to, what, I don't know, 30%. Suicide is up. Yeah, this is a situation. This is situational depression, where you have something physical really to be sad about and worried about and confused about. And the only thing that works for me is to talk about it with other people. And hearing them talk about their own stuff helps me to feel less alone, because depression is like its best friend is isolation and withdrawal.
Absolutely.
And I don't have, I don't have those go-to things anymore. I don't, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, so the ability to take a walk, and exercise and get some stuff going on in my brain, or get on the cell phone and take a walk with a friend, just having a conversation. That's what helps.
Being somebody though that obviously you seem very, very open and sensitive to things that are happening. Did your roles ever influence how you felt? Because obviously, Ralph Cifaretto, The Sopranos, an amazing character, a friggin' sociopathic madman. When you were playing those parts, did you kind of take some of that home with you at some point? Did playing that character upset you, or some of the other characters you've played?
I don't think so. I was fascinated by the the building blocks. What kind of trauma turns a human spirit into that kind of gluttonous monster, and like not-minded people, because they were all gluttonous monsters. I just didn't want my kids to see it, and I didn't watch it either, because much as I loved the material that they were giving me to do, and it was fun, and I guess, if anything, it was freeing to be such a scumbag.
Yeah.
And I was getting stuff off my chest. Also because I was, as a kid, I was a victim of bullying, because I was my first drug of choice was food. So I was a little fat kid and a big target for the bullies in my neighborhood. And so I was able to kind of sublimate those moments. I don't know if you can relate to this, but the times that you're confronted by bad guys, and it's that flight or flight kicks in, and you cower and you run away, and you don't stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And you feel like a coward. I felt like a coward. So I was able to take those feelings and use them against the people in the scene, the characters I was playing opposite, where I could finally get even.
Oh, wow. That's kind of therapeutic, because you carry that. Worse than getting the punch in the face at a fight with a bully is backing away and having that kind of self-resentment for not standing up for yourself. That's a tough thing. But again, I think that takes the right type of raising of a child. That goes to the parents, and to instill in you how you're supposed to act in those situations.
But it's a socioeconomic. It's like, if you live in the coal mines, you're gonna have lung problems. So it's also a zip code. All disease is environmental. So it was the environment, and where I grew up was pretty tough, and my parents couldn't protect me. And on those occasions where I hit tilt and I just, saw red and started swinging, I always noticed that those bullies cowered.
Yeah.
The minute you punch them in the nose, they back down. And the other thing that I understand now is I was always it was those times when you didn't stand up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I'm so distressed with all the bullying that's going on in our country now. And everybody's, strutting around and pretending to be tough guys. And there's no empathy. Nobody walks a mile in somebody else's shoes.
Yeah, true. I gotta agree with that for what you see out there. You, I want to ask Daniella. Your dad said that you wouldn't let your kids watch some of these scenes, these more violent scenes that you portrayed in various movies, and especially as Ralph in The Sopranos. Have you seen those, Danielle? I would assume at this point in your life, you still have never seen.
I've never seen The Sopranos because he told me he never wanted me to see him as that character.
But now it's just an amazing job of acting. If you could pull that just as an acting, like looking at the acting, I can't imagine somebody not wanting to see that. It's brilliantly done. And the writing is fantastic. But is there a part of you that doesn't want to see it, or do you want to see it?
Part of me wants to see it. Part of me doesn't. I definitely don't want to see him die. I actually haven't seen a lot of his movies because he dies in a lot of them.
He really does.
No, right? You never saw.
I've not seen The Matrix. I haven't seen Memento. I haven't seen Bound. I also am take him out of the movie. I don't like violence. I don't like watching that.
Sure.
So yeah, but in Memento they held the gun to his face, and I was like, I can't do it. And I could have him sitting next to me, but because I can separate him, and people are like, oh, your dad's an actor. How cool is that? I'm like, well, it's his job. Yeah, I understand that it's cool, but I was born and raised in it, so it was like, well, that's his job.
The Matrix is great. That line in The Matrix where it's like ignorance is bliss. That speaks volumes, because a lot of times you just, God, if I just didn't know, I would be happier.
When you're around, if you're sensitive and you're around, you find out, the idea of how tough it is out there, the world. The longer you're around, the more battle scars you have.
Yeah.
That beautiful innocence.
Yeah, it is. It's just when you think too much. If you think too much about anything, it tends to go to a bad place. I don't know why that is. I like falling asleep with the television on, because if I just lay down in a dark room, my mind starts going, and inevitably it starts something that I have to worry about. It's very hard to get into a good place, so I need those distractions.
Well, Shakespeare says nothing is either good nor bad, but thinking it makes it so.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. I before I let you go, this has just been goddamn great. I'm a huge fan of yours, and what you and Danielle are doing is really fantastic. But you're not getting away without me having to comment on this. It's a theory I've had for quite a while. Of course, Sopranos, you and Tony, that fight at the end that Daniela has not seen, over the horse pie. I don't think it was about the goddamn horse. That was about Tracy. He says she was young and beautiful and innocent. And at one point, they kind of allude to it when Sil and Tony are at the Bing. He says, oh, look at her body like a thoroughbred, but those choppers, something like that. And I think that was 99% about Tracy and 1% about the horse, but it gave Tony that excuse.
I don't think it was an excuse. See, I disagree. I think you got to go back to the introduction of Ralph and his obsession with the gladiator.
Oh, yeah.
If you remember, and that particular episode and the one leading up to it, where they determined that Ralph is too financially important to them,
Yep.
that they could take out a boss. They get permission to take out the boss, Johnny Sack, because of something that Ralph said about his wife.
Yeah.
And so Tony and Ralph, because Ralph is furious. For him, it's about, how dare you? My son is dying in a hospital, and you're crying over some horse. So in that moment, it was a fight to the death. That these two
Very
guys,
gladiator-like, yeah.
gladiator-like, and I think that's that was the brilliance of David Chase, is the subliminal aspects of what that show represented. If it was like an onion. You get the exterior, but if you go deeper, there's way more to it.
It is an amazing show in its rewatchability, in its people that are watching it for the first time. The writing and the acting is second to none. I've watched it many times through the whole thing, and what you said earlier is absolutely true. When you first watch it, and I first watched it when it was running on HBO back in the late 90s, early 2000s, or through the 2000s, you notice, you go, oh, that Tony, I like that guy, or this guy seems okay. And then with rewatchings, you realize every single character is a despicable monster in that. It doesn't matter who it is. They're at least, even the poor lawn guy was on the take and couldn't do certain things. But everyone is a monster in that. There's not one person with a completely innocent character in that show. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and then you get all these politicians emulating that.
Yeah, no shit. Joe, Daniella, thanks so much. Let people know where they could see you guys. You'll do a better job than I do.
So, No Kidding Me Too podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, everywhere. We also have an Instagram, No Kidding Me Too podcast on Instagram. And yeah, that's it. We have our own Instagrams. I think, Dad, you're Real Joey Pants, and I'm Daniella Pantoliano. It's pretty straightforward.
Awesome, man. Daniella, thanks so much. Joey, be well. Take care of yourself. I'm a huge fan, and people love you, man. So, yeah, be well.
Thank you.
Take it easy. Oh, it's awesome. I feel bad, though. Like, I feel bad he feels bad. I feel bad he feels bad. Like, he's such a great... It's one of those dichotomies of actors and the characters they play and things. You're kind of like... you think you know them, And that must be something he deals with also. People that... you think you know the person, and obviously you don't. And most people, when you ask how you doing, they go, "Oh, fine, great, okay," and you think that's it until they're found with a shotgun in their mouth or something. God forbid. But yeah, it sounds like he's still going through a lot of shit. Oh my God! Like on a daily basis, you're just sad all the time.
I think he got hit by a car last year.
Did he? Oh my God!
Yeah, like the start of the quarantine.
You fucking ran over Ravi. What the fuck? It's a very difficult situation. I didn't do my Tony Soprano impression for him. So very bad. Call him back up. I got it. Kidding, of course.